PHLY Eagles podcast on a Monday afternoon, a playoff Monday, presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whenever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. That's right. We got a new intro music for the playoffs. We're banging it hard. Zack Berman is here. We got a lot to talk about. The Eagles are ready to play the Packers next Sunday at 4:30 in the afternoon. We've got firings around the NFL. We're going to talk about that. We got a lot to talk about, Zack. How you doing? You got a fresh cut on a snow day Monday.
I'm excited for the week ahead. I'm excited for the playoffs. This is a fun time of year. If you do this for a living like we do, and you spend 48 weeks a year waiting for these four, so eager to see what happens here.
A lot of talk on the post-game show last night about the snow day plan. Zack, how did you spend it?
I wrote it. I finished the Tanner McKee story this morning. Went through some of the Eagles-Giants game. Didn't do that much of that. I went on Anthony's show at 9:30. I responded to some emails. I structured out the week. Chatted with the kids a bit. I went over to that little
chatted with the kids. It sounds so formal. Like you went to the office water cooler and checked in and asked them how their weekend was.
I had a little father-son haircut, and then prep for the show.
Wonderful. Well, we got a lot to get to.
What about you? How's your morning been?
It's been good. We had Casey had a friend over. It's good because then they're playing together. Got some work done. Sent some emails. Opened up a file in WordPress that you were not allowed to open.
I didn't open it.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes. We're going to talk to Fran Duffy, the handsome, erudite young man, to break down Tanner McKee's performance. We're going to do that towards the later end of the show. You don't believe that Fran is erudite? I saw you furrow your brow there.
We don't need to do this. I don't understand.
You think he's a dummy? You think he's a football dummy?
No. It was more. I don't like the descriptions of the way someone looks as like apt.
You don't think he's handsome? You think he's ugly?
No, I just don't think it's a description that we should use for anybody. Like it's has nothing to do with him on the show. So yeah, it's not worth getting into.
Okay, well, I think Fran's watching. Fran, I think that you're an attractive man, and I'm sorry that Zack doesn't think so. So we'll do that towards the end of the show. Lots of news and notes around the NFL to get to, some of it with Eagles ties. And then, of course, we got to start talking about this Eagles-Packers matchup. Now, just to set things up for the week, we've got those 2 o'clock shows every day, but it's the playoffs. We gotta add a little extra. We're going to add a bonus show Wednesday night, prime time, 8 o'clock. We know that Les Bowen is going to be joining us for that show. Should be a good space filler in the week, I think, because Wednesday is when we're going to, find out, is Jalen Hurts practicing? What do the guys say in the locker room? So a good hole to fill there. We got a nice primetime show. And we turn it up to 10, Zack. Even though you and I are not playing in the playoffs, we're going to bring it a little extra hard.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to, Nick or Chip Kelly used to say, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to your training. But I don't think it's one or the other. Like, I think when time calls for it, you have to step up, and we need to step up here. It's a big week for us for the show, for PHLY.
Since we last spoke, we know the Eagles are locked into their time window on Sunday. Will be the late afternoon window. The Fox game seems like Fox got priority there, so the Eagles will be playing at 4:30 at the LINC against the Green Bay Packers. The line for that game has already moved a little bit on Bet365. Opened at 3.5 in the Eagles' favor, has now moved to 4.5. I think some places have seen it go as high as 5.5. So early action on the Birds. Is that the way that you open the week yourself feeling, Zack, that the Eagles should feel good about this matchup, especially now with the news that Christian Watson, the deep threat receiver for the Packers, expected to be diagnosed with a torn ACL, which obviously will take him out of the playoffs?
Yeah, to an extent, right? I like the Eagles more than the Packers. I think they're the better team this year. That said, the Packers are a real good team. I've been reading stories today about them having a down year. I don't see it that way. DVOA doesn't suggest as much. And then the other part of this is, and I use this line on Anthony's show, but this cannot be dismissed. The NFL playoffs, it's not the NBA, but it's not a 7-game series. If a quarterback gets hot on a given Sunday, or your team doesn't show up and have your best game, you're out. Like all this is done. So the Packers are a team that can absolutely come in here and win. They're well coached. They're tough. They have talent on both sides of the ball. They're experienced. So I see in the chat someone saying Patriots or I'm sorry, Packers are frauds. I don't see it that way. I think the Packers are a legit opponent, and the Eagles are going to have to earn this win.
It's an important thing to remember. I think the way you framed it is correct. There are two truths at once here. One is that, as we've talked about, everything that has happened in the regular season for the Eagles is going to be cast aside and washed away, and we're just going to remember what happens in the playoffs. Like, that is how this team is going to be judged. It is how they're going to be remembered. The 18 weeks were prologue for whatever comes next. Like, the expectations for this team are to sniff the Super Bowl window, right? At the same time, yeah, these are some coin flips, and football games are weird. And if the Eagles and Packers play 10 times or 100 times, I would expect that the Eagles would win the majority of those games. But we've all seen weird football games, and as you said, Jordan Love can get super hot. The ball can bounce one way or another, and even if the Eagles are 6-point favorites, one bounce of the ball is a touchdown the other way, and that's just an unfortunate loss. And so it is harrowing territory for a team and for all of these players and coaches and front office people who have put in so much work to get this team ready for this moment, that a little bit of it is out of your control. But I do think that just lining things up right now, the way things are, the Eagles should feel good about the matchup.
The news of the Christian Watson injury, how significant do you think that is?
I think it's significant. And I think the Love thing is worth paying attention to as well. I mean, he's going to play, but who knows how hampered he will be. I think smarter football people than myself might tell you that, Christian Watson, while he himself does not have the craziest numbers, although on a per route basis, he is their top wide receiver on a yards per route run basis, the speed that he brings changes a little bit of the shape of the defense. They have to respect his over the top ability. And so to some degree that opens things up, whether that's over the middle of the field for Jayden Reed or for Romeo Doubs. I do think that Jayden Reed is like all of a sudden the player that the Eagles are going to be worried about. And that's why I think that Cooper DeJean is a real player to watch this week and an interesting player for the Eagles. Obviously, he did not play in that week 1 game. He was not ready as deemed by Vic Fangio. That didn't happen until after the bye. So I think the Watson thing is significant, but I also think that they have enough players on the outside, and they probably want to lean on Josh Jacobs enough that their offense is still dangerous. I mean, it's a top 5 offense by DVOA. Christian Watson is good, but he's not changing them entirely.
Yeah, for the Eagles fans who have not consumed Green Bay coverage today or only heard about it tangentially, you mentioned the Jordan Love injury. He hurt his funny bone, basically. There, I think the ulnar nerve is the more
Deadly
technical term, but he hurt his funny bone. And if anyone has ever hit their funny bone, you know it affects the rest of your hand. Matt LaFleur said he's going to play against the Eagles. He's definitely going to play. Jordan Love said he expects to play. So I don't know the nature of how that injury will affect him in the coming days. He did have a hard time gripping yesterday, right? Because of what that nerve does. He did throw on the sideline, but it sounds like he's going to play. We're going to have now both these quarterbacks. Obviously there's injury. We'll talk to Nick Sirianni. He's scheduled to talk to him at 3:15. I doubt Nick's going to give us any tangible update on Jalen Hurts.
He's scoffed at it before, but it's possible. If there's good news, he'll pass it along.
Sure. But like you said, Wednesday is the day to watch. Otherwise, the Eagles are the healthier team going in this than the Packers. You mentioned the Christian Watson injury. That's a devastating one for Green Bay in the sense that he's an important player. You mentioned how he stretches the field. They do have a lot of weapons on offense, but it's one of those where they thrive with the strength of the group. So you take someone away from the group, it's hard to replace a guy like that.
It's not quite this easy.
Yeah.
But you do think in general, zooming out that like part of the strength of the Packers passing game, aside from Jordan Love, is that, as you say, they have 4 or so wide receivers who are all very competent and can all beat anybody one-on-one. And you would think about, against most defenses do not have 3 or 4 guys who can cover all of those guys one-on-one. That is the strength of the Eagles defense to some degree. And so not to say that the Packers offense is not scary, but you would think from a secondary perspective, the Eagles defense is particularly suited to handle what the Packers offense is throwing at them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But to build on that, when these two teams played back in September now, week 1, as Cam Jurgens said yesterday, it seems like a year ago, I know the Eagles defense has improved significantly since then. The numbers back it up. You look at the yards per carry they gave up that game. You look at the explosive they gave up that game. The Eagles are better since then. That said, Matt LaFleur, who I think has earned his reputation for being a high-level play caller, high-level offensive schemer, he's going up against defensive personnel that he doesn't know, right? The Eagles were at a different stage than they are now. So the Eagles are better, but there's also more film for LaFleur to dissect for this Eagles team. So I'm curious to see what that matchup is because, yeah, I would agree that they can spread the ball around. The bit that I've checked out, Tucker Kraft is someone who is better than I expected him to be. You know, I remember going into the year, I thought Luke Musgrave was going to have a big game. Luke Musgrave got banged up, but Tucker Kraft's been real valuable for them this year at tight end. But the key from my perspective is Jordan Love. Can Jordan Love turn it on? Because look, I'll tell the audience now, you can take a shot every time I bring up that Cowboys game last year. And because I'll probably bring it up a lot this week. And the reason I bring up that Cowboys game last year is because to me, it is comparable, right? The 2 seed, real hot going in, or a good team going in like the Cowboys were then. And Cowboys were home, legit Super Bowl aspirations. And Jordan Love came in and played the game of his life that day. And the fact that he's done it on that stage shows you that he has it in him. And I think that's the variable. That's the concern here.
Zack, Pecknest migrate for me, what I would consider to be like the 3 at-home injuries. Okay. So Pecknest migrate, a funny bone, bang, a paper cut, and a stubbed toe.
So stubbed toe, are we talking structural or just nail? Like, is there?
You don't know. You don't know going in.
Okay.
It's gonna be dealer's choice.
Yeah. Okay. So
on that one.
So if I'm nesting the injury, it means that
that's the one that you're gonna be susceptible to the rest of your life.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like which one is like I'm least concerned about the funny bone injury, but that
migraine is one that you can cast aside and say you'll never have to worry about that ever again.
Okay. So then I guess I'm nesting the paper cut because it's a nuisance, but it's not affecting your life, right? I'm pecking the funny bone injury because it stinks when you have it, but after a few minutes,
it does dissipate.
It dissipates. And I guess I'm migrating the stub toe because there's all types of ramifications that you could have from that,
I would venture to say that the worst pain of my life, physical pain of my life, was a severe stubbed toe.
Okay.
Toe just went the nail just went black immediately.
That's what I'm saying.
I was lost.
That's my worry because there's long-term ramifications.
To the point of vomit, you wanted to it was so painful.
Yeah, it's like you hate, I have a stack of printing paper here and I always shudder before I pick it up because you get that paper cut and it aggravates you, but that's more of the annoyance and it's not affecting your day-to-day life, a paper cut.
It depends where it is. It's potentially, if you get it between the fingers or something like that, you're typing, but yeah.
But a stubbed toe, I mean, 3 weeks later, you can get some type of infection around so there's Yeah, you got to be careful with the stub toe.
Do you have things? Do you ever like late at night step on a kid's toy? You ever get that one? Or is the house too clean for that to happen?
Yeah, Emily's very organized. No, there's not stepping on the toy. No, there's not that.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes I'll kick something like I won't, I'll like the door or something like that. But no, I don't step. There's not typically toys. If anything, what I do is I'll trip over like if I come home late from a game and I don't put my shoes away and like the shoes are next to the bed, and I get up and like I trip over the bed.
Wait a second. You wear your shoes up to the bed?
Well, not in the bed, but yeah, I'll run upstairs and I'll get changed. Like, yeah,
you don't take your shoes off when you go in the house?
I'm supposed to, but sometimes after a late game, like I'm running right up. I'm not even taking the shoes off, and I should.
That's interesting to me.
Yeah, that's not okay. It doesn't happen often enough that we need to spend any time on it during a.
Hey, Julia in the chat says, "Whoa!" I also feel flabbergasted by this.
Yeah, yeah. No, because there's times when
the chat is going wild.
All right, a pair of indoor. I don't have a pair of indoor shoes. No, I do not.
You'd be the deviant.
Yeah. All right. Let's
this is potentially somehow the most controversial thing you've ever said on the show.
Yeah, seriously. I already share way too much of my life on the show, so no need to get into that.
Yeah, this is fascinating. All right. In a minute after the ad read that comes up next, we want to talk about the zoom out from the Eagles for a second, talk about the things that have gone on around the league with maybe potentially some Eagles ties. And then after that, we'll get to Fran Duffy. But anything else on the Eagles front, Zach, that you think is worth discussing on this Monday before we hear from Nick Sirianni?
Yeah, I think from the injury front, the one to monitor this week, other than Jalen, of course, is Nakobe Dean. He's dealing with the ab injury. He did progress last week, but this is something to monitor. I know there's intrigue about the backup quarterback. Performance aside, I'm expecting Kenny Pickett to be fine. He progressed. I'm expecting Kenny Pickett to be better for the postseason. I still think Pickett's going to be the number 2. I suppose we'll see. And then if we just want to outline quickly the basically because we didn't know what the matchups would be last night when we spoke, the Eagles would play if the Eagles can play Washington in the second round. Okay, so the Eagles play Tampa Bay unless Washington unless Washington wins.
Right. So the Eagles are the 2 seed. They play Sunday afternoon. If they win that game, they will then be watching the Sunday night game, which is Tampa Washington, and they will know if they have won that if Tampa wins, Tampa is coming to Philly the next week.
Yes.
And that if Washington wins, they will then play the winner of the 4-5 game, the Los Angeles Minnesota game on Monday night. And because of that, they will also know when they're going to play, right? If the league holds to what it's done in recent years, which is to split up one NFC game, one AFC game on Saturday during the divisional round, one of each on Sunday in the divisional round. And if that is the case, the teams that play Monday must play on Sunday. And so the Eagles will then know whether they're going to play on Saturday or Sunday.
Sure. And look, the Saints aren't on the Saints aren't in the playoffs, but if they were, there could be a path where it's like you take care of all recent history in the NFC playoffs. Of course, Green Bay is the team that thwarted the Eagles in 2010.
Okay.
The Eagles lost to Tampa Bay twice here in the past 3 years in the postseason. And then New Orleans is the only other NFC team to beat them in the playoffs in the past 2 decades.
Okay, that's well said. Now, what did you think of the game last night between the Vikings and Lions? Did that change at all your perspective on the road to the Super Bowl for the Eagles?
It didn't change it. I mean, I've said all along, and I stand by this, and I know our listeners won't enjoy this, but I think the Lions are the clear favorite in the NFC, even with the injuries. And I know they had another one with Terry and Arnold. I said that going into Detroit, I kept talking about the value of the 1 seed. Going into Detroit's going to be difficult. That's a talented team. That's a well-coached team. Now there's a lot of different variables here. First off, I thought Minnesota played them tough last night. Minnesota missed some fourth downs near the goal line that would have made that a different type of game. But I think Minnesota's better than Tampa Bay, and Detroit would have to beat Minnesota in the, if Minnesota wins, Detroit sees Minnesota, and
if Tampa Bay beats Washington.
Yes. If Tampa Bay beats Washington, fair enough. Dan Campbell said to Kevin O'Connell last night, we'll see you in 2 weeks. So I'm curious to see how this plays out. I know there's Eagles fans who don't want to see Todd Bowles and that Bucs defense. I don't think the Bucs are as much of a threat as maybe their reputation would suggest. I think that, and look, clip this if the Eagles play them next week and lose, right? But I think the Eagles can beat Tampa Bay, especially at home. I think Detroit was the game that would really concern. If I was doing a power ranking of teams, it would that you don't want to see. It's really the NFC North. Detroit's 1. I would probably say Green Bay 2, Minnesota 3.
Interesting.
Washington 4, Tampa 5.
Yeah, like you said that Minnesota played them tough last night, and that was true to some degree in the first half. And yes, there was some fourth down disparity there, but I know that teams have sort of underestimated Minnesota, and like nationally, people have underestimated Minnesota all year long. But if that team comes into the LINC, I would not be super scared.
Yeah. That's fair.
And I think that the way that they play on defense maybe plays its way into the Eagles' hand a little bit. As for Tampa, I think God forbid I don't want to take anything that he's working on out of his hands and risk potentially being accused of stealing takes. But I think that EJ was sort of polling people on I don't remember when it was at the end of last week about like which team you think the Eagles would least want to play. And I said, like, I know that there's, the Lions were fading, but to me, the worst matchup is still at Detroit, like having to go to Detroit. And I think that that's true. But as for Tampa, I kind of think that I would feel worse about playing the Bucs this weekend than I would next weekend, if that makes sense. Like if there was the unknown of, okay, here we go to the playoffs and we got to conquer that Bucs demon, and Jalen's coming off this injury, like, we're a little bit worried about that. I think if the Eagles are able to come out and like win their wild card round game, you can afford to feel a little bit better about whatever ghosts of Bowles are dancing around in your head.
That's fair, but we can both agree Detroit's worthy of respect. Detroit's a bona fide heavyweight.
Absolutely.
They
played like a B game yesterday. And won by 3 touchdowns or whatever it was.
Yeah, well coached, tough, and especially in Detroit that place. I have respect for those fans, and that place looks absolutely rocking. I mean, I hope as a reporter, we get a chance to chronicle that. Like that'd be a cool NFC Championship game, Eagles Lions. That'd be cool to cover.
I want to do that road trip, man.
You
sponsored?
Okay. Yeah. You love getting on the road, driving up the. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You're more of a driving to a place guy than a flying.
I'm a man of the road. Absolutely.
And why is that?
I don't know. I don't know. It's how you see the world. I like driving.
So inefficient. It is so inefficient.
Did you see the story of the guy who got stuck in his Waymo at the airport, circling around, wouldn't let him out?
I did not see that.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a punchline? Or
no, that's a true story that happened.
So you're cherry picking one story as I mean, I look, if you listen to our viewers and listeners who've taken Waymos, I bet they would swear by them.
Swear at them?
No, swear by them. Swear by them.
We'll see. All right, let's take a
Don't
break.
be afraid of what you can't understand. Isn't that a Bob Dylan lyric?
What you can't understand. Back after this. Well, it's time for me to tell you about our friends at Game Time. That's right. We got a game coming up on Sunday, 4:30. You want to try to get in that building? Root on the Eagles? Best way to get in the building, probably, it's going to be Game Time Picks. Well, Game Time. Through the prism of Game Time Picks, because the new feature, Game Time Picks, is what makes getting tickets to your favorite events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find the best value. We always talk about Game Time. Why do we talk about Game Time? Because it's the best. Why is it the best? For these reasons. All-in pricing. You don't get surprised by those hidden fees at the end. You think you got a good deal, and all of a sudden you're paying $60 or whatever of taxes or fees. None of that. Toggle it on Game Time. You see the full price right before you commit. You get the seat views, so you know exactly what it's going to look like when you get to the stadium. You got the lowest price guarantee. What's better than that? So you know that if you go to Game Time, you're basically searching all the different apps because you're guaranteed to get the lowest price. And if that's not the case, you find the same seats for lower somewhere else, Game Time is going to go ahead and credit you 110% of the difference. And you've also got the Game Time ticket coverage where your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time and your purchase is covered with the most flexible like Brian Baldinger, baby, the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time.
This time of year, you're at the house, snow day, you see some type of household issue. Maybe there's a leaky pipe. Maybe there's an issue with your HVAC. Maybe there's a faucet problem. And you know what? You're saying, I'm home. I'm working from home. My kids are crying. I need to get this fixed. And you can't do it on your own. What do? You turn to Ace Hardware Home Services. They're around the block with everything you need to fix it, including the person doing the fixing. If there's an issue in the house, they will fix it, and they have a person for it as well, because they're not just the helpful hardware folks. They're also the helpful home service and repair folks. From plumbing to heating and cooling, they have the trusted pros to keep your home humming all year long. Ace Hardware Home Services, we're bringing helpful home, the helpful you love, from the store now to your front door. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at www.acehardwarehomeservices.com to get you started on your next project.
All right, Zach, obviously today, a very newsy day in the NFL, although potentially a little bit less newsy than some people might have expected. Give me we'll get to all of the things that happened, but your number one takeaway, what do you think was the most interesting decision made today?
Jacksonville keeping Trent Baalke.
Absolutely agree. Outrageous. Insane.
Yeah. There has to be a point where,
what are we doing?
Yeah, I'm not one of these guys who's like, oh, he must have.
It's like Zack and Bo's hands coming together,
yeah,
in agreement.
I mean, come on. You can't keep surviving these head coaches. You can't keep making these questionable decisions. I don't
cockroach.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing with Trent Baalke. And the other part too is, like, even let's presuppose or suppose for a second that Shad Khan believes he's a talented evaluator, or there's things there.
He's done a better than average job at bringing players in that players have not been made the most of by the coaching staff.
Yeah, which I disagree with. But let's for a moment,
just for argument's sake.
Yeah, just for argument's sake. This is going to hurt your ability to get a head coach
100%.
because your head coach is going to want it. There needs to be some type of synchronization between the head coach and the front office. And if they're not on parallel timelines, and so if Trent Baalke's fired in a year, then you have a head coach working for a GM who who wasn't involved in hiring him, and that's how this friction gets created.
And Khan has already said that the new head coach is going to report to him, not the GM. Like,
yeah,
you can't keep doing this dance, man.
Exactly. Yes. So that's number one. Number two,
totally agree. Absolutely insane, and the sign of a franchise that doesn't know what it's doing.
Yeah. Number two is the Giants.
Trent Baalke.
Yeah. Number two is the Giants, and there's a few reasons here. Okay, because one, I think that John Mara does not want to be the guy who fires the coach every 2 years. He thinks that like stability matters. But this is the problem fundamentally. And I go back, look, I'll give Jeffrey Lurie kudos on this, is that when you put a coach on notice and a GM on notice, which they did, in a critical, it's one thing if you do it in a year when like you go all in, like Nick Sirianni last year, you get to go all in. But if you're at a point where they need to build the roster up and it's like, we expect you to win next year, they're going to start making decisions that are not best for the long. So like if you're Joe Shane and you love a quarterback, it's like you go get him, because if it screws up, it's the next guy's problem that you traded all these picks. Or you give a bad contract, it's the next guy's problem, right? Like you're going to do everything you can to maximize this upcoming season, which is so bad for the long-term planning.
Zach, I feel very uncomfortable right now because you and I agree too much.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, like I think it's, and again, I'm not trying to defend John Mara. Like I think it's noble if you believe in stability, but I think there can't be a point where just because you fired Joe Judge and Pat Shurmur and Ben McAdoo, that can't, like, you have to make this decision independent of that decision.
To choose stability for stability's sake, is not the right choice. It's like, oh well, everybody tells me that the best teams are the stable teams. Like, well, so let's stay the course. Like, if evidence tells you that that's not the right move, you shouldn't do it just to be stable. And for a lot of the reasons you said, like they're going to have a high draft pick, the timelines, the incentives are not aligned. It's a little bit silly. I could be talked into. It makes more sense to keep both than to fire one, potentially, because of some of the things we talked about with Jacksonville, because then they're not on the same page. But yeah, I mean, I think as Shield tweeted out, like over the last decade, the Giants have like the worst record in the NFL over 10 years. It's the Jaguars, and then the Jets have one game better than the Giants. Like they think of themselves as this Paragon franchise. They have been an absolute dumpster fire for a decade now. So they don't know what they're doing. I thought the Mara press release was very funny, and I was especially tickled by the parentheses around Tish. He's Steve, parentheses Tish. Like, it really made me laugh. It felt very passive aggressive to Tish, but also like out of place from the rest of the thing. I just it's for Eagles fans, it continues to be a blessing.
Yeah, I think the reason I'm hesitant here is because you hear the term deserve. Like, this guy doesn't deserve to be fired after 3 years or 2 years, and deserves a hard word to use, because like, for instance, Gerard Mayo doesn't deserve to be fired. But at the same time, I don't think you keep someone just because it's like it's you feel bad firing him, right? Now, this is the thing. And Mike Vrabel might be the best coach out there. By the way, shout out to Zack Rosenblatt, did a great story on Mike Vrabel last week. I enjoyed that. But the Patriots didn't have a search last year, okay, because it was in Mayo's contract for him to take over. And then if you fire Mayo ostensibly to hire Vrabel, once again, you're not doing due diligence on a search again. And so that process there, I don't love, but I still think
you hire Gerard Mayo if you're expecting a 1 year turnaround like that. That didn't make sense.
Now they were kind of locked into it, like they could, contractually locked into Mayo last year. But yeah, that's a tough situation for Mayo, because that's a bad roster. Now, I don't think he helped himself out this year, but that's a really bad roster. But I just keep going back to what Jacksonville did as ridiculous. Because look, Doug Peterson. I'm not here to defend Doug Peterson,
I think Doug probably deserved to be fired.
Yeah. But Doug was brought in to like clean up the Urban Meyer mess. Okay. And you're keeping the GM who was there for the Urban Meyer mess now.
Yes.
Right. It's like
maybe that's why. Maybe he knows what really happened.
Yeah. If like Trent Baalke's whole defense was, well, those were, that was Urban doing that, right? I really didn't get a chance. Well, now you hired a coach. You had all this draft capital. You had all this money. I just don't get it. I'm curious to see what happens in Vegas. I'm curious to see what happens.
No official decision in Dallas yet.
Yeah, curious to see what happens in Dallas. I got to think McCarthy's not coming back.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, I don't think so. Do you think he's come back?
I was leaning towards he is coming back, but it is interesting that there's no word yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's and by the way, this is exactly why Nick Sirianni, there's going to be a decision for him after the season, because having a lame duck coach is like the oddest thing, like if they just don't make a decision.
Yeah, but I think
McCarthy's not fired.
I think a lame duck coach is okay. It's a lame duck general manager makes no sense, because it's a person who has to be working on parallel timelines. A coach's job is to try to win every week, and so
that's true. That's
the incentives aren't messed up there necessarily.
Yeah, it's like it could come to a point where they don't fire McCarthy; they just let the contract lapse.
Yeah,
right.
So let's do this. Surprisingly, right now only 5 jobs open. Stack rank for me, and let's go ahead and throw Dallas in there, and we'll say that we'll say that Antonio Pierce stays for whatever reason. So let's say Dallas, New Orleans, Chicago, Jacksonville, the Jets, and the Patriots. How would you are Zach Berman, the hottest? I'm not talking about your looks. I'm talking about like people want you to be hired. You're the number 1 prospective head coach on the market. How are you stack ranking those 6?
And I'm not looking at it from like a living perspective for my family. I'm looking at it purely from football perspective, right? Okay. I'd put Chicago number 1. I like Caleb Williams. I think they have talent on that team. Now you need to understand what's going on with the front office. Is Ryan Poles a lame duck, or I shouldn't say lame duck, but is like Ryan Poles general managing for his job this year, and then they could bring in a new GM or something like that. But the Bears would be number 1 to me. I would go Jacksonville number 4. Oh, I'm sorry, number 2. Jacksonville number 2.
What a weird thing to go 1.
Yeah. No. Sorry, I'm looking at it.
Number 2.
Yeah, I would go Jacksonville number 2 because you got to work with Baalke, so probably not.
Yeah.
I guess the Patriots number 2. I like Drake May. There's a big talent void there. Once again, you're going in with a GM in place, so you gotta be comfortable with Elliott Wolf. The Patriots haven't shown a proclivity to spend, so I say Jacksonville because I just keep thinking Jacksonville's like they should be better than they are. I mean, a year ago they were sitting at 7-2, right? Or 7-3, and Trevor Lawrence gets injured.
I mean, if you're the kind of person who thinks that you can go in and out politic Trent Baalke,
that's the thing. Yeah,
and muscle your way in and then get him whacked next year. You're a good inter-office player. Then potentially Jacksonville is interesting. But yeah, I think it's tough to want to work with Baalke, and that franchise has just been so bad for so long.
Yeah, I mean, they have a great new practice facility. They're building a new, they're doing a major stadium constructions. Although they're going to have this weird 2-year period where they don't have a stadium. That's always tough for the players. But yeah, I would try to force Baalke out. I actually think New England might be number 2 because
I think you could argue number 1. Because the Bears have been so, like, the ownership with the Bears, they've just been so bad for so long.
Sure.
I like Caleb Williams too, but I don't think that there's differentiation necessarily between how sure I am that Caleb Williams is going to be a superstar versus Drake May going to be a superstar. And so I might rather take the infrastructure in New England.
Okay.
And you're not the guy replacing Belichick.
And what's your view on the Jets?
I think the Jets are probably dead last of those 6.
I think the Saints are.
I don't think so.
All right, sell me on New Orleans, other than living in New Orleans.
stability. It is actually an organization that pays money. Like they're cash forward. They're always willing to push the salary cap down the line. Now, Mickey Loomis, I don't love, but he's not the worst, and they're patient, and it's an easy division.
Yeah, best salary cap spot. Now you can just take it on the chin for 1 year, which is if they hired me. That's what I would say to do. I would be like, let's stop playing for 10 wins and let's take it on the chin for a year. Their quarterback situation's tough. I don't like the quarterbacks in this draft class coming up. And I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. I don't like the talent on their roster. I don't like that New Orleans situation. I actually think the Jets have a lot of talent. I still feel their quarterback situation has been an absolute mess. I
think there's a pretty good case to be made that with Daniel Snyder out of the league, it's the worst owner in the league.
Yeah, true.
That's the thing that matters the most.
Now, the thing is, you can come in with a GM, so there's going to be synergy there if you're the coach.
Usually.
Yeah. Name I would watch out for.
Brick.
Yeah. Yeah. Good facilities. If that matters to you.
No quarterback.
Yeah, no quarterback. And again, that's like, how are you going to get a quarterback? That's the big question you're asking everybody. I'm curious to see if Tennessee opens here. Callahan would be one and done. I think that'd be interesting. The team's having the number 1 pick, a new stadium opening in 2027. But yeah, I would.
So I don't. Why is the stadium a consideration for you as the head coach?
The practice facility more than the stadium. Okay. The practice facility. Yeah, because that's where you're going into work every day. I do think that matters.
So what?
I mean, these guys spend 18
hours.
So
far down the list, but how really different is one practice facility from another? That feels like so far down the list of important things.
I disagree with you there, because I think. Yeah, because I think that matters a lot.
One place has they have equally bad owners, but one place has a quarterback and one place has a better practice facility. You would take the practice facility?
I would take the quarterback. Okay. But first off, I think
it can't be in the top 10 things that matter.
All right, so I'm going to push back on this, Bo. First off, I think a practice facility is representative of things that you're talking about here.
Well, that's fair.
For practice facilities often representative.
That's the right argument. Is that it's indicative of the owner's willingness to spend.
Yeah, of organizational investment, number 1, taking care of the players, number 2.
Poor Fran has been waiting to join the show, and we're just filibustering.
Practicing facilities, yeah. But Chicago would be the number 1 for me.
Okay, let's take a break. Hear from our sponsors, bring in Fran, see what he thinks, and then we're going to get to Tanner McKee and some other stuff, some other Eagles ties in the news from today. Time to talk about our friends at Glatt Hair Restoration. You know about Glatt. You've been watching the Johnny Marks show. You've been seeing that Zack doesn't want me to talk about it. He doesn't want me to say anything, but John looks good, whether Zack wants me to say it or not. And the reason he does is because the good folks at Glatt Hair Restoration. What makes Glatt the place to go to when you are in the market for some fixing up top? Well, it's the same peerless approach to care that they had with Dr. Glatt and Morgenstern, the same expert team, same unmatched Glatt system, same state-of-the-art location, the same stellar results, and it's under the direction of Dr. Morgenstern, who is a highly respected plastic surgeon. Here's the thing that really, really matters. Each member of this exceptionally trained team brings not 5 years of experience, 10 years, 20 years. 20 years is a lot of experience. Guess what? It's more than that. Every single one of them, over 30 years of industry experience. Hair restoration is all that they do. Each patient with Glatt receives a complimentary one-on-one consultation to pinpoint the best course of treatment. And Glatt Hair isn't just about restoration, it's about innovation. Their breakthrough treatments really do dramatically change lives, change your hair, change your life. Bald is now optional. If you want to improve how you look and how you feel about yourself, Glatt Hair has the right treatment for you. Regain your confidence. Visit GlattHairMCTR.com or call 610-980-4000 to get started.
I want to talk to everyone about Bet365 because if you are a football fan, what you have coming up this week is
Have we lost him? What you have coming up this week is incredible.
Sorry, I'm here. I am here. I was so excited talking about it that I kicked my Ethernet cord.
You kicked it again?
I kicked it again. Yes. You have college football playoff games coming up. You have NFL playoff games coming up. This is awesome. Bet365 has 90 million users worldwide, live streams 780,000 events each year, early payout offers across NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB. Bet365 pioneered live in-game betting. Today, Bet365 offers the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 states. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Use the code PHLY365 to sign up. Deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, players, props, futures, and more. I wanted to let everyone know with Bet365, you download the Bet365 app, use code PHLY365 when you sign up, get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, let's bring in the man himself, Francis Duffy, sex appeal, whether Zack says it or not. How you doing, Mr. Duffman?
Like looking up words in the start of the show. I'm like, I don't even know what this word means, but no, I'm happy to be with you guys again.
How do you, as a prospective head coach, friend, how high up are practice facilities for you?
It wouldn't be in my top 5. I was shocked how high it's be, but no, I thought you were on the right track in terms of like the quarterbacks. I think that is certainly the area I'd want to focus on is like, what is the structure from like GM, like ownership, like reporting, and then after that, I think it's quarterback.
Fran, as someone who's worked in college facilities and in NFL facilities, would you agree that the facility can often be representative of the institutional investment, like the investment in whether it's the coaches, the players, the organization? Is that a fair statement to make?
I think so. That said, though, I mean, when you walk through the doors of the NovaCare complex, you're not like in awe at like the beauty and the sheer you're not like awestruck by the construction of the NovaCare complex. It was a building that was built in 2000, 2001 at this point. So obviously made a ton of upgrades in there. It's, I think that there's plenty to like about the building and the facilities, but I don't think that that's a representation of the impact that Jeffrey Lurie has, and he's one of the best owners in sports. I don't think that's representative of that either.
All right, I want to do an impromptu.
Wait, real quick, I could just tell you anecdotally when Jeffrey Lurie talks about the turnaround of the franchise. One of the first things he points to is the construction of the practice facility and what that meant for the organization.
I think that's true. It's also they didn't have a practice facility.
Yes,
right. And so they went from 0 to 1. I don't think there's a huge difference between what they have and what the rest of the league has. If anything, they're trailing behind at this point.
They are, and it's something to look at.
Yeah, and the stories that you hear from working in the vet, pretty crazy where they went from there to NovaCare.
All right, we're going to do an impromptu draft here. Okay, the three of us is going to be a 2-round snake draft. And what we're drafting is the people in the Eagles organization, whether it's front office or coaching staff, who you think are most likely to be hired for promotions elsewhere this offseason. Now, part of the reason for this is it has been reported that Alec Hallaby, the Eagles assistant GM, is going to interview this week for the New York Giants or the New York Jets general manager job, which I believe is the only open GM job in the league this offseason. Is that correct? So far.
Correct.
I think so.
Okay, so that will change how we feel about this draft process. But I think it's a fun way to go about it. Zack, I'm going to let you have the first pick. Fran, you want to go second or third?
I'll take second.
Okay.
And we're just talking people from the organization who would get hired for a promotion elsewhere, not a head coach or GM job, but just a job somewhere else.
Right. Could be a coordinator being hired as a head coach, or a position coach being hired as a coordinator, or a front office person being hired as an assistant GM or a GM, something like that. Yes.
I'll go Christian Parker.
Your number one pick, Christian Parker. Interesting.
Yeah, I was debating between Christian Parker and Clint Hurt. Clint Hurt has been a coordinator.
I was hoping I could get Christian Parker the 3 spot. Nice spot.
No, I think that
as a defensive coordinator is your expectation.
Yes, a young ascending coach, coming from the number 1 defense in the league, is with young corners in the secondary. Owners love the 30-year-old ascending coach, right? And Christian Parker fits that description for sure.
I actually thought it was interesting that Nick Sirianni specifically did not mention Christian Parker the other day. Did you notice that, Zach?
I did not. That's a good point. Okay.
Jeff McClain asked him a question about who behind the scenes maybe doesn't get enough credit, and he named both Clint Hurt and Jeremiah Washburn specifically among the position coaches, but did not mention Christian Parker. I was wondering if there was maybe something to that. He doesn't want to lose that guy.
Maybe. It's a good point.
I think that's a good pick. I don't know if I would have gone number 1 overall, but I think it's a good pick. Over to you, Fran.
It would have been my number 1 pick. So no, I think that that's a good pick there by ZB. I was hoping to get him at number 2. Just looking at my stork rankings here.
Your big bird board.
I think I'm going to go Bobby King. Linebackers coach at number 2.
Bobby King.
Only because I just feel like there's going to be more defensive coordinator openings, and so I think there's more opportunity there. Whereas those GM jobs are harder to come by, and I think that obviously we already know that Alec Halaby's interviewing for one GM opening, but how more of those are going to open up? I think that's the question.
Okay. All right. Well, I will. I didn't want to take him number 1 overall because there's only 1 opening, but I will take Alec Halaby here. We know that he is in the GM interviewing circuit. I think he's a very strong candidate. We already know that the Jets have tried to steal from the Eagles pipeline before, from one silo of the building, maybe this time trying to borrow from the other. Brick Johnson is a Harvard man, so there's connectivity there. I think Alec Halaby has as good a chance of anybody to help turn that Jets team around. And then
the name I would watch with the Jets GM job is Mike Greenberg from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
The ESPN guy?
No,
that actually would track. That would be the kind of thing they would do.
No,
Trini and Rex Ryan. Here we go.
Yeah, no, front office exec with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Pay attention to Mike Greenberg with the Jets.
Okay.
A real quick thing: the person who's running the Jets search is Mike Tannenbaum, who obviously has strong connections to the Eagles organization.
So he's only allowed to hire a Mike. Is that your?
Oh no! Well, actually, Mike Greenberg did intern for him back in the day. But I had something that I had a little birdie back a few weeks ago say pay attention to Mike Greenberg.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. I guess I'll take Mike Golick with the next pick then. I'm gonna go. I didn't necessarily want to land here. I think I'm gonna lose this game, but I'm gonna go Kellen Moore. I think there's a shot that if the Eagles make some real noise in the playoffs, that Kellen Moore gets hired somewhere as a head coach. So I'm gonna go Kellen Moore.
Bo, can you rephrase the question at hand?
Somebody from the Eagles who gets hired to a higher job title elsewhere.
Higher job title elsewhere. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yes. I think we're gonna go Brandon Hunt. We'll go another stab in the dark. Yeah, I think that would be
GM job somewhere.
Yeah, assistant GM job somewhere, or I think that you look at his background, highly respected. I think that he's another pipeline there with the Eagles that will get those looks.
All right, Zach, close us out.
I'll go Jeff Scott getting an assistant GM job somewhere else. I think strong from the administrative side has worked.
You said you were considering Clint Hurt 1-1.
Yeah, well, I wanted one front office and one coaching person. So what I found interesting about your approach, Bo, is you swung big. You swung for GM and head coaching spots. You didn't go for coordinator assistant spots.
Well, I'm just playing odds. One guy we already know is actually interviewing for a job.
Sure.
So that's a possibility.
True.
Yeah.
True. I think Alex will do a good
I
job
expect Kellen Moore to get some interviews. So
yeah, I think Alec's a bright guy. I think Alec is, but I am always curious. Like the Colts did it. By the way, we didn't get into the Colts with the weird decisions. I think Ballard's had enough time to build that roster. So that would be one.
I think Howie's probably been texting everybody in the league that.
But no, but you know how the Colts like hired the Eagles offensive coordinator both times, right?
Yeah.
With both their searches. I always wonder if like if there's any type of bias against going back to the well. You just I know Hal B. I don't want to say from a different side of the building, different background than Joe Douglas, but I always wonder if the owners like, we just hired one of Howie Roseman's executives. Why are we going back and hiring another Howie Roseman executive?
But Zach, what you don't understand about the Colts, that they really struggled after Andrew Luck retired. Surprisingly, that summer, they just you got to give them time after that.
Yeah, it is. Like you look at the Chris Ballard year by year, and it's like, come on, man. I mean, at some point you got to win the division,
I do think that I think Ballard's a good GM, like a fine GM, like in terms of like talent evaluation. I think he goes about things the right way. Like the results haven't always been great, but the water carrying from that standpoint, I always find to be very funny.
Yeah.
All
right, Zach, let us know when you want to hop off for Sirianni.
I love this. So, and the great thing about doing it virtually is that I can literally just exit out. Yeah. So.
Okay. And I'm gonna get ahead of it. I'm gonna hop on this early. This is unprecedented at the 58-minute mark. I'm gonna tell the people on Fast, thanks for watching. You're gonna get like another 90 seconds of this show. But if you want to catch the rest of it as Fran breaks down Tanner McKee's star-making performance in the regular season finale, check out this bad boy on allphly.com. All right, Fran. We're not going to do a full review of this game as normal this week. Tomorrow, we're going to focus on the Eagles' defense against the Packers' offense. On Thursday, we're going to do the Eagles' offense against the Packers' defense. We want to get heavy into this matchup, but since you did the work today to quickly, go through the tape from yesterday, we do want to hear what your big takeaways are, and obviously, we want to start with Tanner McKee. What did you think, and how soon before he's a starting quarterback?
I mean, I was surprised that he didn't make our power rankings, that he could have got hired as a starting quarterback at some point.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. How about head coach quarterback?
Right. Yeah, exactly. No, McKee was really good. I think that, look, he had a couple of misses, some throws I think he would like to have back. I mean, over 40 passes, so they were bound to be in there. But I also think that he had some drops and some throws that he put like on the money that, counterbalance those. So I think when you look at McKee overall in the aggregate, the ball came out on time. The ball placement was really good. I mean, some of the outbreaking throws he made, like opposite hash, deep corner routes on 3rd and long. Now they did a good job in terms of really getting like the run game and the play action pass going, and a lot of the play action boot to really like cut the field in half, make the reads really defined for him. But I thought that McKee played really, really well. And I know that internally they were impressed as well.
You go ahead, Zach.
No, I'll defer to you. This is interesting to me about Tanner McKee.
What was most impressive to you as a guy making his first start?
I would say honestly, some of my favorite throws from him, weren't necessarily like, look, that 3rd and 15 to Jahan Dotson on the corner route was awesome. There were some throws that were really impressive. He had some nice like anticipation throws on like just one read routes, like good timing to get the ball out to Dotson outside the numbers. But to me, like my favorites were the throws that he made underneath to Will Shipley. There was one where he had
and he just knows exactly where Shipley is.
And it was just, hey, you know what? Like, I'm looking to my left. I want some kind of downfield throw over to this side. But you know what? My left guard got beat, and I defensive tackle screaming at me immediately because he doesn't have the athleticism that Jalen Hurts has. He doesn't have the even the creative flair that Kenny Pickett has. Like Pickett in that situation, Jalen in that situation, they're going to try and make that defender miss and roll out of the pocket, make a play. Tanner McKee doesn't have that tool in his bag. He doesn't have that club. So he's like, all right, I need to know where my answers are, his eyes immediately go to Will Shipley in the flat and he dumps it off. And there was one play, a couple plays earlier where he did something very similar. So I just think when you look at a quarterback in that situation, making his first start, his first extensive action in the NFL, the poise really stood out. There was another throw where he steps up in the pocket, he takes a hitch up, and he took a shot in the helmet from the defensive tackle from the Giants. Like the guy came up with his hand and hit him in the helmet, but he kept his eyes downfield and delivered. Like those kind of plays to me, those were the most surprising and the most pleasant to see. I think when you're looking at a guy making his first start.
To that point, eight different players were targeted and caught passes. Obviously, they don't have AJ and DeVonta Smith, so ball gets spread around. The yards per attempt were fairly low, not necessarily what you're looking for there. So because he didn't go deep that often. What did you see?
I think there was also a big difference. You can speak to it more, Fran, between the first half and the second half in this game.
Yeah, I mean, the first half, everything was very crisp. Balls coming out fast. It was more of an uphill battle. I think once the Giants kind of said, all right, like, this is their game plan. This is what they're doing. Let's kind of put the clamps down on some of these things. It became a little bit more difficult into the second half. There were only a couple drives in the half where they were even able to get a first down. There were a number of 3-and-outs there through the third and fourth quarter. And obviously, the run game was basically a non-factor for the entirety of the afternoon. That's where the offensive line depth really kind of showed out in terms of losing against the Giants starters up front. But I do think when you look at McKee overall, I think that there was a lot of positivity to take away from that performance.
To me, the command stuff and the knowing the game plan so well and where everybody is supposed to be is especially impressive in this game because it was such a mismatch cast of characters, right? Like, It's not like he's ever played with these guys before and this unit had never played together. It's not even like this was his preseason group. Like, yeah, he throws the touchdown pass to EJ Jenkins and that was his guy in the preseason, but It's not like he's worked with these guys before. And for him to know the playbook well enough and to know exactly how to process was super impressive. And we talked about the time to throw in the post-game show. I mean, it's one game and 4 passes in the game before it. But over the course of the season, his average time to throw, 2.39 seconds, according to True Media. That's the 4th quickest of any quarterback in the league. That doesn't necessarily equate to good. I mean, Tua is number 1, but then it's Tim Boyle and Cooper Rush, right? Andy Dalton's right after him. So, like, getting the ball out quickly doesn't necessarily mean great, but for him with his particular skill set, and if he were to play in an offense that has AJ Brown and DeVonta Smith, I think those are all very positive things.
Yeah, and just it's going to look and feel so much different than what we've come to expect, from the Eagles pass game. That's why it was almost jarring, watching early in that game because that's not the way that Jalen plays. And to your point, and to the point that we've talked about,
I guess who's dead last in the league in average time to throw.
That's what I mean. Like, and when I did that deep dive into Jalen and some of the struggles, when I say that, like, average time to throw, to the point you were just making, like, that alone is not bad. When you look at who is at the bottom of that list, like, it's Jalen, but it's Lamar Jackson, it's Josh Allen, it's Patrick Mahomes. Like, those guys are all going to be at the bottom of that list too. It's what you do in the situations when you do hold the ball long. Are you able to strike fear in the heart of the defense in those plays? And again, that's not going to be Tanner McKee. If Tanner is holding the ball for 4 seconds, like, typically not going to go well. It's honestly, it's very similar to Nick Foles in that way. That's how Nick Foles as well. The longer he holds onto the ball, typically the worse things are going to go.
Speaking of Nick Foles, one of the things I saw you tweet out was the benefit of Tanner McKee's height on certain plays. How I guess if you can explain that to me and the audience, the benefit of him being 6'6" yesterday, how that appeared.
Aside from him being ready to die sooner.
Look, you're more willing to make some of these YOLO throws if like, hey, life is short. Life is shorter than there was that throw, Zach, that I pointed out, and it was the outbreaking route to Dallas Goedert early on, opening drive. I want to say it was his second completion of the day, where look, Fred Johnson is he's one of the bigger offensive tackles you're going to have to deal with. He's getting pushed back into Tanner McKee's lap, and Tanner still able to see over Fred Johnson and then deliver the ball over Fred Johnson, where that's to me, like, that is why you look at a quarterback that has that kind of size and say, yeah, like, that's advantageous to be able to make that kind of a throw. Now, some quarterbacks also are able to overcome that by throwing around a guy. You know, we've seen Jalen kind of change up the arm angle. You look around the league, and quarterbacks are able to do that. You know, and I think that when you have that size, it is important to also be able to make those kinds of throws. And so seeing Tanner McKee make that on the opening drive, I think was big. And to me, like, that's why after watching it and buzzing through all the throws this morning, you know, I got through like the first cup of coffee and was like, all right, like, let me just buzz through all these throws. It's like, man, like, you're just seeing lots of little things that for a guy making his first start, it's really good to see, you know. And that's why I was almost like, I'm just going to put him out in a big thread, and it's different things you're pointing at with all of the different completions. But again, it's good. And to your point too, Bo, like, some of the completions to Dotson, like, anticipation, balls coming out before Dotson reaches his break. Like, those are the throws that we see Jalen Hurts making with AJ Brown. Jalen and AJ have been working together for X amount of years, right? And so for McKee to make those kind of plays with Dotson, who he's not familiar with working with, because while Tanner McKee has been the scout team quarterback for the majority of the year, Dotson has not worked with the scout team, right? So just showing that timing and rhythm there, I think was very impressive.
On the topic of quarterback hype, real quick, just a quick old anecdote. Something I heard back during that 2012 draft was Andy Reid loved Russell Wilson, right? Like, Andy was the biggest proponent for Wilson in that building. It wasn't universal. And there were people on that coaching staff who, like, after working with Michael Vick for 2 years, it's like, oh, do I want another, you know, short quarterback, right? And they really liked what appealed to them about Nick Foles was for the reason Fran just said, like, having that tall quarterback who can, you know, who you don't need to build a scheme for him to be able to see the receivers.
I thought there were some. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and I feel like the sport, the league, coaching staffs around the league have evolved in that way. I mean, for Baker Mayfield to go number one, for Bryce Young to go number one, you know, Kyler Murray to go number one. Since that point, I think mindsets have mostly changed from that standpoint.
I was just gonna say, like, on the McKee front, there were some, to your point, some sort of subtle pocket movements that were impressive for me. And even, like, there was one play he got sacked, but like he ducked under the outside rusher before the inside guy came in. It was just impressive to see. Give me the sober next day. You know, this is a second-year player who turns 25 in April. You project him moving forward. Like, how good do you think that Tanner McKee can be? Can he be a league average starting quarterback in your eyes?
I think that he is capable of being a starting quarterback. I do. I think that with time and, you know, with a little bit of, you know, obviously the opportunity, right? I do think that there's a skill set there you can work with. I think that also there's an understanding of what the ceiling is. You know, he has to play a certain way, right? Because he doesn't have those athletic gifts. And so if you're going to play that way, then you have to be good in certain areas. And that's why seeing those things, the timing and rhythm, the understanding where your answers are against pressure, like seeing those aspects, like, okay, this is a player that is self-aware of what he is and what he needs in order to win. Now, in the game against that defense, you know, the Eagles were able still to be able to move the football. You know, he's not as gifted from an arm talent standpoint as Jared Goff. Right. So he's not going to make all the same throws that Jared Goff can make in the structure of an offense. But when you think of other quarterbacks that have that skill set, you know, could he be like, would he be better than what Kirk Cousins was for Atlanta this year? You might make that argument that he was better, that he'd be better than what Kirk Cousins was in Atlanta, right? And I think that Cousins coming off the injury, you know, and there's layers there, but you get kind of what I'm saying is that you have to play a certain way when you have a quarterback with that skill set. The run game would be a big part of that, but I think that he has that skill set.
Matters more with a quarterback like that. Yeah.
Yes. You need other things to be working in his favor as well.
All right, we don't want to spend too much time on the game from yesterday, but I quickly on the defense, I'm gonna ask you about who I think were the three most interesting players from an Eagles perspective for yesterday. Bryce Huff.
I'm gonna hop off here then if you're talking defense. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Guy hates defense.
No,
he doesn't have anywhere to go. He doesn't want to hear anything about.
No. I didn't want to jump in the middle of a conversation, so this was a natural transition.
Zach, so we'll talk about facilities. We'll talk about buildings, what practice buildings were.
I can talk about all the different practice facilities around the league. But no, I love talking defense. I'm going to listen to this after the press conference. I just didn't want to interrupt Fran in the middle of an answer.
Thank you, Zach. We love you, Fran. Quickly, what did you think of Zach's shoe bombshell?
I mean, shocking. Like, the most surprising thing since Trent Baalke being retained. Yeah, unbelievable.
It's not every day, but I will admit that under my desk here right now, yeah, I do have a pair of shoes. So, yeah, probably not
No
probably not
wonder
the
you
best
kick
thing.
the Ethernet out all the time.
I can't believe Emily abides this.
No, she does not like it. I get in trouble for it. I'll put it that way. All right, guys. See y'all later.
Like I said, I'll put it that way, as if there's something more to it. Like, I'll leave that there.
Good stuff.
Okay, 3 players I want to ask you about. You don't have to go crazy. Bryce Huff, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Sidney Brown.
Let's start with Jeremiah Trotter Jr. I thought he did a nice job, playing in the area that you would imagine that he's going to stand out, right? So playing downhill, playing within the box. I thought he did a nice job of triggering fast, avoiding contact, finding the football. He had a couple missed tackles in the game, but when you got him outside of playing in that tight confined area, I think you saw some athletic limitations show up. But with time and experience, you hope that he looks a little bit more comfortable in those situations. But I thought that it was a solid showing from him. Obviously, I think he played every single snap. He and Oren Burks were around the football a lot. New York wanted to try and run the ball, so you saw plenty of Trotter in this game from that standpoint, certainly.
So relatively encouraging. Think he could be a third linebacker.
Yeah, I think that he showed enough there. And look, Dainese has brought up the point about the special teams, and I do think that it's valid. I think that when you look at if you're going to stick as that third linebacker, as that fourth, you need to be present on special teams. It's similar to the Tanner McKee thing. Like if you are going to be this kind of player, if you're going to be linebacker 3, if you're going to be linebacker 4, then you've got to be a core special teams guy. Like you have, that's part of the job description. And so, if he's not going to hit that benchmark, then he has to make up for that in a lot of different ways. And so, time will tell if he can continue to expand his role there.
Okay. Well, the flip side to that is Sidney Brown, who does make an impact on special teams.
Yes.
A little bit concerning that he was far enough down the pecking order to be like the 5th safety in this game, but he did obviously get a lot of work because when they were a nickel, Avonte Maddox moved from safety to the slot. Sidney Brown played a lot, got the interception, had the hit down near the goal line. What did you make of his overall performance with getting to see the eye in the sky?
Yeah, I think that when you look at Sidney, I mean, he's an explosive athlete. He plays with his hair on fire. He's going to deliver those huge hits. He plays a little bit reckless at times. He had some, friendly fire on Isaiah Rodgers on that deep ball on the sideline. But I think when you look at him, I think the injuries certainly set him back from that standpoint, from like the mental side and the trust standpoint with Vic Fangio, coming into the season. And I think, I don't want to say it's like a redshirt year, but that's kind of what this has turned into for him defensively. And you hope that, all right, you get a full offseason, you get a full allotment of reps in the spring and in the summer, that now he becomes kind of that backup safety. I know that we've talked about him in the past in terms of like, oh, he could do like big nickel stuff because that's how they used him last year. I'm gonna be honest, I never really liked him in that role. But yeah, I do think that he is primarily like a top down safety. You want him playing as a too high player. I don't want to see him as like Avonte having that flexibility of being able to go back and forth between nickel and safety. Like, I don't think that that's Sidney's best role. I do think that him being more of a deep safety is best for him. But the point that you made at the top of it, the fact that he can be an impactful player on special teams now gives him the grace, gives him that runway to develop into a potential starter down the road. And if he doesn't hit that, then, all right, well, he's got the pathway to be able to stick as that backup.
Can I ask you an off the wall one on Sidney Brown?
Always.
Let's say he puts on like 15 pounds. Do you think he could play linebacker?
At that frame, probably not. Just because he's already pretty small for a safety, like in terms of height and length. That would be a concern for me. I think that you could get to like some specialized type of roles for him, but I don't think it would be a full-time type of position.
Okay. And then Bryce Huff, if the Eagles want somebody to be their 4th edge rusher after Nolan Smith and Josh Sweat and Jalix Hunt at this point, can Bryce Huff do that? Not a great
do
game,
it.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, he could do it. Like, how well does he do it? Like, that's the question. Yeah, I didn't see a ton from him yesterday. I think that, look, he's primarily a speed rusher, and he's going to try and win on the outside. you need to do more than that to get by NFL tackles on a consistent basis. Like if you're not just like, race car, like win off the ball and like that's it. You've got to do more to win at the top of the rush. You have to have some kind of compliment, some kind of a changeup, and he hasn't consistently shown the ability to be able to hit with that changeup yet. And so, I was hoping that we'd see a little bit more from him. Some of the pressures, came on like stunts and things like that, where it was like kind of like laid up for him. But again, like didn't come away with a sack, no big hits on the quarterback, anything like that. So I think you're still kind of waiting here on the Bryce Huff experience.
All right. I think this game will do a lot of work for us content wise come like June, and we can talk about some of these roster bubble players and how they performed in this game. But for now, let's put it to bed, push forward, and we will close this show quickly, but just to check in with you on Monday as we look ahead to Sunday and the big game against the Packers. You feel any differently than you did yesterday about this matchup, knowing now that Watson is out? I keep calling him Watkins.
Yeah, I figured once I saw the injury on tape, because I just had kind of heard about it during the game yesterday, so I didn't see it. But after seeing it, I was like, yeah, he's he's definitely not going to be playing this week, and it's a shame that's a torn ACL, because obviously that's going to impact him through the midway of next year too. But that's a huge loss, for that offense in terms of the way that they want to play, because the way that receiving core is built, it's kind of like a Frankenstein, where it's like the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, where it's like, all right, everybody has their defined role. This is what this guy does, this is what this guy does, this is what this guy does, and he is their vertical stretch player. And we know that Jordan Love likes to go big game hunting, and he's going to lay those throw for Watson, and he's going to also create opportunities for others underneath, where maybe that intermediate dig route's going to be open because he's the guy taking the top off. And so they're going to have to find someone else to kind of step into that role. Luckily for them, Watson has faced injury not just this year, but also last year as well. He's missed spurts of time here this year. And so I will honestly go back probably tonight, go through some of those games in their totality, just to kind of see like, all right, what was their plan without Watson? What are some of the things that they will try and bring to the game on Sunday? But honestly, like one of my big takeaways, I don't think people are talking enough about Jordan Love here this year. I know he's gone through this hot streak of not turning the ball over these last several weeks. Honestly, a lot of the narratives around Love are going to sound pretty familiar because it's like, early on in the year, he threw a bunch of interceptions. He's taking too many risks. So now he backed away from it. Now he's thrown like one pick in 6 games, 7 games, or something like that. But fans and local media are now complaining that, he doesn't push it enough. He's got to push the envelope. Very similar to Jalen from that standpoint. I would say this, like watching through the film, he is outstanding. He is really, really good. And they're second in the league in drop rate, some heartbreaking drops on big time throws from Jordan Love. They don't put a ton on him because this is a team that runs the ball as much, if not more, than the Eagles. They're right up there with the Eagles in terms of run rate and how often they want to give the ball to the back. But this is a really good scheme offensively, run game, pass game, the use of motion, use of play action, the use of window dressing, how they mix and match guys. They do a really, really good job schematically. It's going to be a big test. I'm excited to see this defense up against Packers offense.
All right. Well, we're going to get into that tomorrow. That's why you're a pro, Fran. You're teeing it up. You're teasing it. You're fantastic. That's where the sex appeal comes from. All right. That'll do it for the first of 7, 8 if you count the kickoff show, 9 if you count the halftime show episodes for this week. We're going to, before we go though, it's the playoffs. Got to get ready for the playoffs. Get some new swag. Got the Saquon Barkley 2K swag on the All City store. Can't miss out on that. Look at the beautiful Philadelphia skyline. Just put up nicely there for Saquon as he returns to action for the Eagles after his rest in Week 18. That'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. Back tomorrow, 2:00, to talk about the Packers offense against the Eagles defense. And then we've got 2 shows on Wednesday, the 2:00 with Jamie and Rich. We got a primetime show on Wednesday, Thursday, 2:00, Friday, 2:00. And we push forward for the Eagles and the Packers in the wild card round. Right now, Eagles favored by 4.5 points. Thanks to everybody for watching live and commenting alongside us, the sickos. And that's all we got. We'll talk to you tomorrow. For Julia, Zach, Fran, And all of us at PHLY, I'm Bo. We thank you for listening. We'll talk to you tomorrow. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.